Hi, Mr. Class here. Let's start with some questions. Have you ever wondered why people act the way they do? Why some of us panic under pressure while others thrive? Or why you feel an instant connection with some people but not with others? Well, you've come to the right place. This is Mr. Class, where we break down big ideas into simple, useful lessons. Today, we're diving into psychology, the science that helps us understand human behavior, thoughts, and emotions. So by the end of today's video, you should have a better understanding of psychology to help you answer some of the previous questions. Now, let's get started. Part 1. What is psychology? Psychology is the study of how we think, feel, and behave. It helps us understand why we make decisions, how memories form, and why emotions influence our actions. It has ancient roots, going all the way back to philosophers like Aristotle and Socrates, but it became a true science in the late 1800s when Wilhelm Wundt opened the first psychology lab. From that moment on, researchers began studying the mind in a systematic way, conducting experiments to figure out why humans do what they do. Some psychologists focus on the brain itself, studying how neurons and chemicals shape our thoughts. Others focus on behavior, observing patterns in how we learn, react, and interact with others. And then there are those who use psychology in practical ways, helping people through therapy, improving workplace productivity, or even designing more persuasive advertisements. Psychology isn't just something that happens in a lab. It's happening around you all the time. Part 2. Different ways to understand the mind. Over the years, different schools of thought have emerged, each offering a unique perspective on human behavior. Some psychologists, called behaviorists, believe that everything we do is shaped by what we learn from our environment. If a child is rewarded for speaking politely, they'll keep doing it. If they're punished for interrupting, they'll stop. According to this view, rewards and consequences shape who we become. Others, like Sigmund Freud, believed that much of what we do is driven by hidden forces, unconscious thoughts, and childhood experiences we barely remember. He argued that buried emotions can shape our decisions in ways we don't even realize. Then there's cognitive psychology, which focuses on how we think, how we process information, solve problems, and store memories. This field has helped us understand things like why we forget people's names so easily, or why our brains sometimes trick us into seeing patterns that aren't there. Meanwhile, humanistic psychologists believe that people are naturally driven to grow, improve, and find meaning in life. Instead of focusing on problems and dysfunction, they study motivation and happiness. And finally, biological psychology looks at the brain itself, how tiny electrical signals and chemical reactions influence our moods, thoughts, and decisions. Each of these perspectives tells us something different about the human mind, and together, they help us understand why we think and act the way we do. Part 3. How your brain shapes your experience. At the core of everything we do is a brain, a 3-pound organ packed with billions of neurons that send messages at lightning speed. It's divided into different regions, each responsible for different functions. The forebrain handles complex thinking, everything from planning your day to imagining the future. The midbrain helps process sensory information, making sense of what you see, hear, and feel. And the hindbrain takes care of the basics, keeping your heart beating, your lungs breathing, and your balance steady. Inside the brain, tiny chemical messengers called neurotransmitters play a crucial role in our emotions and behavior. Dopamine, for example, is linked to pleasure and motivation. It's what makes us feel rewarded when we accomplish something. Serotonin helps regulate our mood, and cortisol is released when we're stressed, triggering our body's fight or flight response. Every thought, feeling, and action you take is powered by these brain processes, many of which happen automatically without you even realizing it. Part 4. How we learn and remember. Memory is one of the most fascinating abilities of the human mind. Everything you know, your favorite song lyrics, the way to your best friend's house, even your own name, is stored in your brain. But memory isn't like a perfect recording. It's more like a constantly changing puzzle. When you experience something new, your brain first holds on to it briefly. This is called sensory memory. If it seems important, it moves to short-term memory, where it stays for a few seconds or minutes. And if it's repeated or deeply meaningful, it gets stored in long-term memory, where it can last for years. The problem is, memories can fade or even change over time. That's why you might vividly remember something from childhood, only to later find out it didn't happen exactly the way you thought. Fortunately, there are ways to improve memory. Repeating information over time strengthens recall. Using visualization techniques makes details stick better. And linking new knowledge to something familiar helps the brain organize it more effectively. The more we understand how memory works, the better we can use it to learn and grow. Part 5. Why we feel emotions. Emotions are powerful. They shape our decisions, influence our relationships, and even affect our physical health. But where do they come from? Psychologists believe emotions are a combination of biological reactions and learned experiences. Basic emotions like happiness, fear, sadness, and anger are universal. No matter where you go in the world, people smile when they're happy and frown when they're sad. These responses are hardwired into our brains. But emotions can also be shaped by experience. If someone grows up in an environment where expressing anger is discouraged, they might learn to hide frustration instead of showing it. If another person is frequently praised for being cheerful, they might develop a habit of smiling even when they don't feel like it. Understanding emotions, both our own and those of others, can improve the way we communicate, build relationships, and handle stress. Part 6. How psychology affects daily life. Psychology isn't just about theories. It has real-world applications in almost every area of life. For example, businesses use psychology to design advertisements that grab attention and persuade customers to buy. Social psychology helps explain why people behave differently in groups, like why peer pressure is so powerful, or why we tend to follow the crowd, even when we know better. Understanding psychology can also help us improve our own lives. By recognizing the triggers that influence our habits, we can make better decisions. By understanding how memory works, we can learn more effectively. And by being aware of how emotions shape behavior, we can improve our relationships. This brings us to the end of our lesson, but our learning journey continues. The more we learn about psychology, the better we understand ourselves and the people around us. And the best part is, this knowledge is not just interesting, it's useful in everyday life. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to Mr. Class for more simple explanations of big ideas. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.